A teen who was missing for nearly 2 months has been found living with and engaged to a 44-year-old man she just met. 17-year-old Penelope Penny Wise ran away from her family's Michigan home around 6 p.m. on May 31st and apparently met her now fiancé the same night. She had last been seen on surveillance camera on June 1st and was only recently spotted in person by someone who saw her riding a bike and recognized her from missing posters. No charges have yet been filed against Wise's fiancé.
That girl is 17, so I can maybe understand why she might want to run away. How did she end up getting engaged to a 44-year-old? Where did that man find her? That is very, very weird, isn't it? Would run away from my parents too if they named me Penelope Pennywise. I was quite shocked because in the comment section more people were concerned about her name than the fact that she literally ran away and got engaged to a 44-year-old. What 44-year-old wants business with a 17-year-old like that? I'm not too sure whereabouts in America that is. There's a possibility that that might be legal. You know, the parents might not actually be able to do anything. You know, if the daughter wants to leave and live with her new fiance, technically she can. I just didn't expect that last bit. How'd you go from running away age 17 to literally being engaged to a 44-year-old man? What man has picked her up?
A missing toddler, gone for 26 years, has just been found alive. Andrea Reyes was only 23 months old when she was abducted in 1999, allegedly taken by her mother in a custody dispute. For decades, there were no leads, no sightings, nothing. But after the police reopened the cold case, a breakthrough came through social media, search warrants and DNA testing. Now 27, Andrea made contact with her father she never knew, and DNA confirmed her identity. Her family had searched for years, even traveling to Mexico after reports suggested she was there. But the biggest question remains, where has she been all this time, and what happened with her mother? A story 26 years in the making is only just beginning.
If you're looking for the answers to them questions, all you have to do is ask the girl. Obviously, she's gonna remember who raised her. Where's the mum, though? I'm pretty sure they didn't mention anything about the mum. Has the girl not seen the mum? I do find it fascinating, though, how toddlers can go missing, and most people would presume they're dead, but the whole time they've been missing, they're actually being raised by somebody else. How did she eat? Okay, so I'm gonna assume that she was being raised by somebody. Whether that person knew she was missing had been abducted is another story. Could be a family friend, could be a stranger, could literally be living in a hostel or a child's home. Now we only have to find Madeleine McCann. I have a very weird feeling that we're never going to find Madeleine McCann, and if we are going to find her, it's going to be her remains. Now, I will say there is a possibility she is alive, however, I just don't see that being the case. If you look at the man who allegedly abducted her, he's a horrible, horrible man. You know, I don't think he would have left her alive. Abducted by her mother. Whenever it comes to abductions, people seem to think it's a child being forcibly grabbed or somebody being taken against their will. Now, if it's a child, they technically are taken away against their will. However, they could literally just go with their mother. We don't know what was going on in the relationship. We don't know if the father was abusive. We don't know if the mother was abusive. For all we know, the mother could have been the abusive one and took the child away knowing that it was going to get taken off her. A child getting abducted is very, very easy, and it's quite shocking. Think of it, if you have a family friend and they say to you, oh, do you want to come to this place with me? You're probably going to say yes, and in that case, it could be the last time you ever go home.
This child had been missing for 6 years and was covered in the Netflix reboot of Unsolved Mysteries. Now, she has been found. Recently Solved Mysteries, episode 37, Kayla Unbehan. Viewer discretion is advised. Kayla Unbehan was born on January 5, 2008 to Ryan Azurka and Heather Unbehan in South Elgin, Illinois, a western suburb of Chicago. When the couple split, a judge awarded the dad, Ryan, full custody of the child. On Independence Day 2017, when Kayla was 8, she was with her mother, Heather, at an unknown location in Wisconsin for a so-called camping trip, and Heather arranged to return her the next day to Ryan at 7 p.m. at her place in Wheaton, Illinois. Unfortunately, she failed to show up, and an investigation by the police was launched. It was discovered that all of Heather's social media had been deactivated and her phone was turned off. No one was able to reach her or talk to her since that 4th of July 6 years ago.
Oh God.
The disappearance of Kayla Unbehan remained as one of the coldest child abduction cases in the land of Lincoln during recent times. 5 years later, in November 2022, Kayla's vanishment would be featured on the reboot version of the Netflix series Unsolved Mysteries, Season 3, Episode 9, titled Abducted by a Parent. The episode included an age progression image to show what she would look like as a teenager. This led to increased awareness of the case through social media and the Bring Kayla homepage on Facebook. It wasn't until 6 months later, on May 13, 2023, where a store owner of a Plato's Closet, a store chain that sells used clothing for teenagers, identified a sighting of Kayla and her mother from the show in Asheville, North Carolina, nearly 700 miles away from her Illinois hometown. Heather, now 40, was taken into custody and is booked in the Buncombe County, North Carolina jail. She was initially held on a $250,000 bond, awaiting extradition to Illinois. However, just 3 days later on May 16th, she made bail and was released. She then turned herself in to authorities in Kane County, Illinois, where Kayla's hometown is situated in, and she was booked on an abduction charge. She appeared before a judge and was released on bond again on an electric monitoring device. Her next court date is scheduled for June 14th of this year. Ryan Azurka obtained an order of protection against Heather, and she is prohibited from being near his residence or leaving Illinois without court permission. As for Kayla, now 15 years old, she was reunited with her dad, and he expressed his joy and gratitude to the police and all of those who helped in the search. This case offered hope to investigators and families searching for missing persons, as it was unusual for someone to remain off the grid for such a long period of time.
Just like I said, parents can literally abduct their children. That mother abducted her daughter and they went missing for 6 years. That's the thing I find most interesting whenever it comes to missing people. If somebody goes missing and they're alive, they're living a life but somewhere else. You know, obviously that mother and daughter were living with each other for 6 years while they were missing. Kinda crazy, isn't it? For 6 years when people were looking for them, they were just chilling, they were living their lives. That poor girl, she probably feels so confused and conflicted after all that time. Obviously the father got full custody of her and then the mother disappeared. Is that the reason why? You know, why did the father get full custody? Was the mother maybe not a good person? Also, you have to keep in mind, you know, the girl might not have been happy that whole time. She literally could have been chained up, held against her will. I mean, obviously she was abducted. I'm always conflicted with parental abductions. What if the mum was protecting her from dad? That also goes through my head, but then yet again with the court system in America, it's interesting how the father got full custody and the mother didn't. What has the mother done, or what is the mother suspected of doing for her not to get custody? The only person who knew the actual answers is the wee girl, and I hope she's fine.
6-year-old boy who went missing 70 years ago
70 years.
was found alive and was recently reunited with his family.
This is what I'm talking about. People can go missing for 6 years and then be found. It's crazy.
Luis Albino was only 6 years old in 1951 when he disappeared from a park in Oakland. A woman lured him away and he was taken to the East Coast where he was raised by another family. Albino's family, folks, never stopped searching for him. His mom even kept a vigil for him until she died. But the case went cold. Finally, an ancestry test by his niece 4 years ago found a 22% match. Family reached out and later reunited, saying there were tears all around.
That was the end of that video, but I want to know who abducted him and why they abducted him. Could you imagine literally being his family and like your little brother goes missing and you don't see him for 60 years? Imagine how the mother feels. That's what really breaks my heart about these cases. It's whenever somebody goes missing and their family dies before they find out the answer. Now in some cases when the family members pass, they're actually joining the missing person. However, in that case, his mother literally died without knowing whatever happened to your son. Imagine losing your son and then 60 years later he's finally found. This could be Madeleine McCann in the future. I mean, deep down you hope that's the case. I just don't think it'll be. Even to this day, with all the money and all the resources poured into that case, they still haven't found her. Whether that's her being alive or dead. And it kind of makes you think, you know, are they ever gonna find her? Okay, but who doesn't remember being 6 years old? He could have forgotten being separated. That's so interesting to me. My first memory is from 2 to 3 years old. I mean, you don't know what he could have been put through. Being 6 years old is very, very young, and then being abducted at that age and given to a new family. It could be the case where he's always had them memories because he's grown up with a new family. He's thought in the back of his head, am I making this up? You know, am I lost? Is there something wrong with me? There's been many times where memories have popped into my head, and sometimes I do think, is that real or did I just make that up?
One of the biggest cold cases solved in 2023 was that missing teen Alysia Navaro reappeared in Montana. Alysia was missing for almost 5 years after she left home one night in 2019. Her family and the community searched relentlessly for her for the last 4 years. But in July 2023, she reappeared, showing up at a police station in Montana and asking to be taken off the missing persons list. Here's an overview of her story. 14-year-old Alysia was a sweet young girl who loved to spend time in online gaming forums such as Minecraft and Discord. In 2019, she began acting a little bit differently than she always had. When she was younger, Alysia had been diagnosed with high-functioning autism, so for most of her life, she thrived from routine. But in 2019, this had recently changed. She was showing interest in new things, such as comic books, classic rock, and fitness products. She also began to express interest in things like body spray, makeup, and somewhat provocative clothing, and her mother, Jessica, assumed that these changes were the result of peer pressure at her high school. On September 14th, 2019, Alysia stayed home from school after having a particularly anxious day. She spent the day with her mother, and then that night, she stayed up late playing games online, which was normal for her. Sometime between 12 and 1 a.m., she went downstairs for a glass of water, told her mother that she loved her, then headed back to her room. Around 7 o'clock the next morning, Jessica went downstairs and found that the back door to their home was wide open. In the backyard, she found 2 chairs stacked up against each other placed against the fence, and when she went to check on Alysia, she realized that she was gone. On Alysia's desk was a note that read, quote, "I ran away. I will be back. I swear. I'm sorry." Jessica immediately reported her daughter missing to police, and she knew that she was particularly vulnerable and was likely manipulated to sneak out. A silver alert was issued for Alysia, and the case gained national attention. But unfortunately, it led nowhere. While Alysia had taken several of her belongings, she also left behind things like chargers, indicating that she was planning to come back. There were sightings of Alysia, but she remained missing, and Jessica started to appeal to the public for help in finding her daughter. But Alysia was nowhere to be found, until 2023. In July, now 18, almost 19-year-old Alysia showed up at a police station in a northern Montana town. She identified herself and asked for help getting off a missing juvenile list. And she told police that she wasn't hurt and she was safe. The day before Alysia showed up at the police station, a neighbor of the house that she was living in heard her yelling with the man she lived with, but the neighbor only heard her say, "I will go back." It's been reported that Alysia wanted to get taken off that juvenile missing list so she could obtain a driver's license and start living a, quote, normal life. The man she was living with was questioned, but he was released with no charges. And authorities reported that by all accounts, Alysia seemed to be safe and that she had left willingly. Go to part 2.
I wasn't able to find part 2, however. Why has she been living with a man since she was 15? Terrible she put her mother through that. Okay, so a lot of people in the comment section seem to be blaming the girl. She was 15 when she left and she's living with an older man, I'm gonna guess. It does seem like a situation where she's basically being groomed. In that story, the two victims are the mother and the daughter. She was a child, how can the man be released? This is horrible, but I'm glad she's alive, but her poor family. She's saying what I'm thinking. What has that girl been put through? She's been living with this man since she was 15. I'm gonna guess maybe they had some form of relationship going on. What man does that? That's what I don't get. And it's just the fact that the mother knew obviously someone has abducted her daughter, but they literally couldn't find her. I hope that she reconnects with the family again. I hope that man gets jailed because quite frankly he's a freak.
Have you heard about the man who went missing for 22 years and the only reason his body was found was because of images on Google Maps? This starts in Florida again, and William Moat called his girlfriend at around 9:30 p.m. saying that he was heading home from the club, but he never made it. The next day she reports him missing, but there were no crash sites reported, no weird crime scenes. It's like he just disappeared. For years his family just had to accept that maybe he was kidnapped or abducted or worse. Until 22 years later, this random guy is looking at this neighborhood on Google Maps. He zooms in on the pond and stops. There's this weird pale shaped object under the water. It kind of looks like a car, so he tilts the angle and it's definitely a car. They reported it as a suspicious object, so a few policemen and divers go and check it out. They pull a car out of that pond. It's a white Saturn SL covered in algae, but when they wipe the windows and look inside, there is a human skeleton still stuck in the driver's seat, still buckled in. Turns out that was William Moat. He wasn't kidnapped, he wasn't running, he just swerved off the road and drove straight into that pond right behind the homes where people grew up skipping rocks and walking their dogs. For 22 years he was just sitting there, visible from above in that pond, and no one ever knew. It's really eerie, it's so tragic, but honestly I'm just glad now that his family knows the truth. And honestly, stories like this really make you question how many other people are out there waiting to be seen, hiding in plain sight.
You know the good old saying, you're never 1 meter away from a rat? I think we need to make up a new one. You're never 10 meters away from a dead body. So a lot of people in the comment section were talking about how the residents wouldn't be able to see that car. From my knowledge, you couldn't see it from an eye level view, only from a bird's eye view. Imagine growing up in that area and you walk by that lake every day and the whole time there's been a dead body in there. I'm also quite curious as to why nobody knew he crashed in there. Surely if someone swerved off the road and drove into the lake, you would hear something. You would hear the car swerving and a big crash and obviously a big splash. That just is very eerie, and it makes you think, how many other dead bodies have you walked by or above? You don't know who could be buried in your garden. But anyways guys, that's the end of the video. If you want to see me look at more solved missing people cases, let me know, I definitely will. Press the subscribe button, see you all tomorrow for another video.